Perfect. So, hi everyone. Thank you for coming to today's Latinas in Law panel. I'm Josué Ruedas. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I'm the community programs intern at UCI's Latinx Resource Center. Now, if I could have Brenda, Catherine, and Graciela introduce themselves, and if I could have you all state your name, your pronouns, what year you are in law school, and what your major was in your time at UCI.
Hey everyone, my name is Brenda Rosas. Pronouns are she, her, hers. Currently a first year, we call ourselves 1Ls, and we're all 1Ls here. And my major in undergrad was political science and education.
I can go next. My name is Catherine Cueva, 1L at UC Hastings. I use she, her, ella. And my major at UCI was, I think it's called psychological science now, and criminology, law, and society.
Hi everyone, my name is Graciela Castrejon Fernandez. I am also a 1L and I'm currently at Berkeley Law. And my major was political science and criminology, law, and society.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So just so that those who are present today know the structure of the event, right? I have 13 questions to ask you all. And I'm hoping that towards the end, we will have time for a brief Q&A. If anybody attending would like to ask you all some more questions about your experiences in either getting to law school or actually in law school. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And if I could have you all answer each question just so that we can get as much, so we can hear as much of your experiences and benefit from your knowledge as much as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. So the first question is, when did you realize that you wanted to attend law school? And what inspired you to pursue a JD?
I can go first. So I did a program in high school called Project Self, and it was a program designed to assist high school students from underrepresented areas to the legal field and essentially to create diversity in the legal field. So I interned for a personal injury attorney in Santana. And that was really like my introduction to the legal field. I got the opportunity to go to court, mediation, depositions, and it's something that really caught my attention. And then from there, I was like, I think I want to do this. I'm not sure if this is the type of law that I want to do, but I'm a DACA recipient, so immigration law has always played a vital role in my life. So I think in my head, I was like, if I get a legal degree, I will feel it. I will like empower myself, my community, my family. So from there, I made the conscious choice to go to law school, and sometimes I regret it, but mostly not.
I feel that too. I feel like I regret it like every day, but then I like remember like why I'm here. I think I kind of thought I wanted to go to law school. I want to say it was like my junior year in high school. I was helping my mom with a domestic violence case that she had. And I advocated for her in like the courtroom, and I was like her main translator. And I realized that the case didn't go in our favor, and I felt very like betrayed by the justice system. And I was like, well, I think the problem is that like the judges in these spaces or like lawyers in these spaces usually don't look like us. Like they don't come from our communities. They don't understand like that my mom didn't speak up because she's an immigrant. She was scared that she would get deported, even though she did have like a valid case. So that really frustrated me. And it could have made me just like want to like not have to deal with anything anymore. But I was like Graciela said, like I want to empower my community and like build that bridge between our community and these spaces, just that way that people can go to lawyers, whether it be like an immigration case or whether it be like workers' rights, and have someone that they can trust that looks like them, that speaks their same language, that understands like their background, and just be that person for someone. Similarly, like Graciela, I've been doing like pro bono, like immigration, but I'm leaning more towards education and pipeline programs. Me and Graciela and Catherine all did a program called Saturday Academy of Law that I'm sure we'll talk about. But there we bring students from Anaheim, Santa Ana, and Garden Grove, and we expose them to like higher education in law school. So that's ultimately what I want to do. And yeah, I do regret it every day because 1L is hard, but I heard it gets better. But yeah.
Yeah, not to get too like grim here, but when I mean, prepare you by saying it's hard. Like it's something it'll test you, but you will come through it, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I do have a long and a short answer, and I'll keep it with the short answer about when I realized I wanted to go to law school. I was never really exposed to lawyers or a legal education until undergrad. And even then, I often would get discouraged. I think the first time I realized I wanted something in a legal career was probably my first or second year at UCI. And I got discouraged one or two times. And it wasn't until junior year when I said, okay, I'm deciding now I'm going to take the LSAT, which in and of itself is a big leap. It's a big thing, especially if you're first gen, especially if you don't have the resources. It's a big deal. And so that's when I decided, I made the leap and I said, okay, I'm going to try this out. And little by little, it's mostly taking those little steps. And then you realize like, oh, I'm applying to law school and it feels really real. And you just have to look back and realize, okay, I did that little thing. I can keep going. And so that's pretty much that's what inspired me. I want to say my family, my experiences, my colleagues, and just seeing everything we've done so far.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking to some students as well, and speaking from my own personal experience as well. That's a lot of why I want to go to law school too. I have some of those same frustrations. So being able to have you all here today really does mean a lot. Just because like I'm aware of some of your like contributions, right, and what y'all have been through and what y'all are sharing now, like is very eye-opening. So thank you for that. The next question is, which academic, professional, or other extracurricular opportunities did you pursue as an undergraduate student?
I can talk about Saturday Academy of Law, which I think everyone here should get involved in if you are interested in law school. Like I said before, it's just, it's like amazing because it's ninth grade students that we work with. And also I feel like it really connected me to the law, to UCI law, and like made me realize like this is where I want to go, just because I see like how much they give back to the community, and I want to go into like public interest and like my own community. But as an undergrad, you could be a teaching assistant for Saturday Academy of Law, and it's each semester, it's like semester system because that's how the high schools are, but it's 6 Saturdays, and basically the students learn about like the First Amendment, and at the end they get to perform an oral argument in front of an actual judge, which I would not have been able to do when I was in ninth grade. Like we were just talking before, like I had my oral argument like last week and I could not even do that now. Like it was really bad. But these ninth grade students, you just see them grow, and like that was like one of my favorite experiences in undergrad. I did it for 3 years in undergrad, and I'm still involved with it now because I'm currently at UCI Law. Thank you for sharing the application or the info. But that's something I did. I was also a part of Pre-Law Society, and there I really learned about like what the LSAT actually was and like what steps I should be taking. And I ended up getting some free LSAT prep courses through that too, which is pretty cool. So if you're not involved in Pre-Law Society, definitely recommend that org as well. And other than that, I worked full time, so I couldn't really do much outside of that. But Saturday Academy of Law was like my major thing.
Yeah, I second what Brenda said. I did both of those things as well, and they were really helpful. I think in addition to that, maybe outside of UCI, there are a couple of other pre-law programs that I highly recommend, especially because a lot of them will cover an LSAT prep. So UCI has a UCI pre-law outreach program. There's the Munger and Tolles and Olson MTO fellows, and then there's the UCLA fellows. Sidley has one as well, and many of these as first generation students, they have a lot of mentorship. They will likely read your personal statement, help you with the LSAT, give you free classes, free courses, which is amazing. And some of them will even give you like applications, like will give you like, I think Silly gives you $2,500 or $1,500 to help you with the application process, because you have to pay to apply to law school, which is crazy to me. And those were the programs that really helped me. And a lot of those mentors are the reason why I have a job this summer. So I think, you really have to build your community, because once you get into it, you realize how small the legal community is. So making those connections now is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything that Brenda and Graciela were saying. So at UCI, I'm going to say do as I say, not as I do, because I did not reach out as much as I probably should have. And I know the value of mentorship now. And I definitely wish that I would have sought that out sooner. I was a commuter. I was often commuting from LA to UCI, which is why I was only on campus 2 days out of the week. And this was before everything was on Zoom. And so if I didn't have to spend the gas money and the hour and a half driving, I wouldn't. But I really do feel that I should have been a little bit more involved with the resources, because I'm first gen. So I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And we get used to that. So it almost feels like second nature, but it's a lot more work than you should be doing, especially when you're pursuing something like a JD. I worked in nonprofits. And then of course I was at UCI Law, Saturday Academy of Law, TA, which was, it's a really great program. I mean, we can't say enough about it. If you can be a part of it, be a part of it. Because again, you appreciate what these high school students can do to speak in front of a judge. Like it's a 1L thing. You have to do your oral argument, and it's taxing. So to see high school students do it, you feel so proud of them, because you've only known them a few weeks, but you've seen their growth, and it's really reflective of what we're doing too. So as much as you can, definitely get involved with extracurriculars. I didn't do any of the I guess more traditional, so like law firm jobs and stuff like that. I kept it policy based. And there are different routes to take, but definitely get the experience so you know what you like.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate that answer, Catherine, acknowledging that, some of us aren't K to JDs, right? So we don't go straight into law school after graduating from college, which I think is a perfect segue for the next section, right? Covering what you all did after you graduated. And if I could ask you all, when you were thinking about applying to law school, what made you decide to take time off of school before applying?
I can keep talking, because that is a good segue. There were a few different things motivating me. One is saving up money. So working and making sure you try to mitigate how much debt you take on, because there are scholarships and there is the money that your school gives you. But law school is expensive. And so to the extent that you can save, please do. I kept working in nonprofit because I liked where I was working. I was working at a local nonprofit. I liked what I was doing. It was a cause near and dear to my heart. And so I decided that I wanted to take that time off. And even though I was getting some pressure from my family to just kind of finish your education, you're going to hear a lot of you're going to get discouraged. Oh, you're going to settle down and do other things. You're not going to want to finish your degree. All those things come from a good place. But I knew that I wanted to get a JD. And so I knew what was right for me. And ultimately I did what was right for me.
I graduated UCI in 2020. That was when COVID hit. And one of the major things, like I always wanted to go straight in, but I was not going to pay the amount of money for law school to do law school over Zoom. Like that was like a big no for me. I was like, no, I want the experience. And like looking back, I wish I would have taken more gap years. I think definitely like learning a lot about yourself and like mental health is super important. Something that we don't talk about a lot in law school, even though they have all these resources. or like even as first gen like Latinx folks, like it's something that is often not talked about in our families because of culture. So taking that time that I needed for myself to like prepare myself for law school, I think would have helped me a lot. But for me, I worked at a personal injury law firm. So I took one gap year, personal injury law firm. I continued my work with the Saturday Academy of Law, and I did a program that Graciela mentioned, the Munger, Tools, and Olson Law Fellowship, which I also recommend everyone to take a look at. It's a great program. It's a 9-month program, I believe, and it's very small. It's like about 30 of us, and like those are like the biggest support system I had throughout law school because we're all going through like the same thing, and we all like understand like what we know each other's stories. So like having that support system and like still talking to them now, like just to rant about how law school's going just feels like amazing. So I did that, and like Graciela mentioned, I got like a free PowerSquare LSAT class for them. So I was able to study through the LSAT. We got private like tutoring as well through them, which was really helpful. And we didn't have to pay for it or anything. So that's what I did, and I'm trying to think if I did anything else. No, that's it. And it just went by really fast because of COVID, to be honest. But it ended up working out.
So similarly, I took 2 years off. I was also under the impression that I was going to go straight in, and then I took the LSAT, and then I realized that maybe I should wait a little bit because my LSAT score was not great. And I also did. So right after I graduated from UCI, I graduated in 2019. I went into the MTO Fellows Program, and they really do encourage you to apply that cycle. I ended up taking the LSAT again. I did better, but something that I didn't realize that when it comes to like a professional degree, a lot of it's not need based, it's merit based. So I knew that if I wanted money, and as I previously mentioned, I'm a DACA recipient, so I'm not eligible for federal grants. I don't have that ability. So I really needed to ensure that my LSAT score was as best as I could get it, so that I can ensure as many scholarships as possible. So that was my focus. I worked like Brenda, I also worked at a personal injury firm. Then from there, I ended up going to a nonprofit in Irvine, and I ended up doing that as well. And worked, saved as much money. I like lived very frugally. Because I knew what the end goal was, and I wanted to make sure to reduce any type of debt as much as possible. So I saved as much money, and I studied for the LSAT, and it was the worst time of my life. Maybe, well, maybe not so much now, but it paid off. I think overall, and I really focused on that. And I think overall, one thing that I learned throughout that time, although we're like you should just apply when after with the MTO fellows, but for me, my gut was like this is just not your time. Like you need to readjust, refigure everything out. And I waited another year, and I'm forever grateful that I did because I really got a chance to really teach myself the LSAT because although you do get these prep courses, everyone learns very differently. And I had to teach, okay, what works for me and what's going to work for me. So that's what I did.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's a perfect segue to the following question, which is how did your experiences away from school impact your experience in law school?
Like in like job wise or like school
Yeah, you could interpret it as like professionally or personally, right? Maybe you learned something new about yourself, for example.
Yeah, I think for me, that time away, something that I wasn't expecting throughout that process was the imposter syndrome really hit. Although I knew I was capable of, but like when you're seeing your score not getting better, or you're seeing maybe rejections, or people or the school's not giving you money, it really just kind of puts you in this like hole of like, what did I do wrong? How can I do better? And things like that. So I think just kind of building myself up again. I'm like, okay, I can do it. Find a way to negotiate, reaching out to people like, how can I get more money? How can I get into like, how can I increase my offer? Also, I think that time I was able to really, I would consider myself an introvert, and my boss really pushed me when I was with her. We worked for an international nonprofit. She's like, we have like these international calls with like over 500 people. She's like, you're going to be on the call, you're going to speak. And it really helped me build those communication skills because last couple of months, I was interviewing for jobs, and those type of things, you're interviewing with 6, 8 different people at a time, and that was very stressful. And I think that really helped me And also, I think many of the people that I was interviewing with, they really appreciated that I had previous work experience because they know they don't have to teach you the little things if they were to hire you.
I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of there are benefits and then there are obviously downsides. For me, because it was COVID time, I actually left my job and went back home to be a caregiver. And so that was big for me because, like I said, I wanted to save money. I was preparing for this big change in my life. But then I said, okay, like something I still value is my family. Um, my grandmother raised me. And so for me to say, okay, like this is something I want to do. So I went back home to help my grandparents. Especially during COVID. My job was remote for a while, but because it is nonprofit, it ended up being a little too dangerous at that time. No vaccines, very few masks around, like adequate masks, and so um, I I learned about myself that I can still be who I want to be and still value the things that I value, and that's something that you're really going to need to hold on to when you're in law school because there are always going to be things that challenge you, and again you're going to ask yourself at some point every day, why did you do this? And the answer is what's really going to push you through it. And just knowing that you get to decide to be the lawyer you want to be. There's no one way, there's no be a lawyer or don't be a lawyer. There's you as a lawyer and what is specific to you, what is special to you. And that can be whatever you decide it to be.
Echo everything that Graciela and Catherine said, like especially imposter syndrome, like that is real. And it definitely hit in law school because there's not a lot of us in this field. Like personally, like in my at UCI law, like there's like 50 of us in the classroom, and like out of those 50, it's 5 Latinos where I'm the only Latina, which is like you look around the room and like there's not a lot of us, and like the community is so small. But like Catherine said, like holding on to like why you're here. Like for me, like something that I talked a lot in my interviews because I was applying to like public interest and like education specifically jobs, and I'm working at the Alliance for Children's Rights this summer. And something that I said to them was like, my frustration is that I grew up in Santa Ana, Anaheim area. That Irvine is just like a 30-minute drive, but like seeing like the education that we get in Santa Ana and Anaheim versus the education that students in Irvine get is just not fair. Like we're all capable and we all deserve to be in these spaces, but we're separated by the 405. And that's like the one difference, which is very, very frustrating. And I think, I don't know, Josue, if you were at the Latinx Excellence Awards dinner, but something that the keynote speaker said was like, Latinx students always come to me and talking about imposter syndrome. And she was like, how can you be an imposter when you can look in the mirror and be like, this is who I am? Like, you're never an imposter when you stay true to yourself. And like, that's something that I've been holding on to very dearly. And she took a moment also to acknowledge that, yes, we're all here, but like, let's always remember the people from our community who also deserve to be here, who just maybe made one different decision than we did. So that's something that like I value, and like I remember like they didn't make it into these spaces, but like I'm the bridge for my community to make it into these spaces. So just remembering like who you are and like why you're here is very, very important. And it's very easy to lose too. Like I've seen firsthand people losing the sight of that. But hopefully it's something that like I can continue to hold on dearly to.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, you have me thinking about that divide, right? Just across communities, and it's like a 10-minute drive from Irvine. So it's a very real image that you were able to portray just now. Building off of that quote, right, that you just shared with us from the lead dinner from one of the keynote speakers, I want to ask you all if you had anyone in your life, whether it be a professor, a mentor, a staff member, or supervisor, as an undergraduate or post-undergrad, who helped you through the law school application process and served as a sort of bridge for you all?
For me, it definitely took a community. It wasn't just one person. I think the mistake that I made, I think while at UCI was that I rarely got close to my professors. I never knew what to ask in office hours. I never knew Like I was just too nervous. I didn't want to seem dumb to the professor. And at the end, I think my last year, I did get close to Professor Kelly. I'm not sure if she's still there. She was great, amazing. Wrote me a letter of recommendation. But I think my biggest support was through the MTO fellows and the UCLA fellows. Like these were the people that, the students were going through the same thing that I was. We were going through the application process. We looked over our personal statements. When we were sitting for the LSAT, we would meet at a coffee shop, study together, hold each other accountable. Like, okay, on this Saturday, we're taking an LSAT test. Okay, everyone do it. And so that was very helpful. And my coworker was a previous Berkeley alumni, and she read everything. She tore my personal statement apart, and I appreciate that because sometimes people don't want to hurt your feelings and your friends like, oh yeah, it sounds great, but you want the truth and honest. To be like, you know what? I think this could be better. I think you can write better. I think she really kind of took me under her wing and was like, even like my boss, like during COVID, our office shut down. I was like, hey, I'm studying for the LSAT. Can I just hang out in the office by myself with how I'm the younger of four siblings. So there's my house is very loud. And I was like, can I just study here? And like, yes, of course, like perfect. And I was able to find that like quiet space for me to study and take tests, which was amazing. Um, but it definitely took a village. As a first generation, like all of us, it takes a village because we're just figuring it out. So that's it.
I was fortunate to have the community as well through MTO, through the pre-law outreach program at UCI. But one person for me was Estuardo Ponciano. He's the executive director of community programs at UCI Law. He runs the Saturday Academy of Law. I first met him at a pre-law society event that he had. And like my first time ever speaking to him, I think it was like my first year. And I went up to him and I was like, hey, like I kind of got like a D plus in like a science GE. I was like, can I still go to law school? And he talked to me for like an hour. He's like, yes, you can still go to law school. Like, you're going to be fine. I was like, okay. Cause I was planning like not to go. So he was the first person who kind of was like, yes, like you can go to law school. And like, I'm here to help you as a resource, whatever you need. And he's very open to help anybody at all. So if you haven't met him already, I do encourage you to like reach out and just be like, hey, like I'm interested in law school and I just want to learn a little bit more about UCI and like tell you about myself. And he's more than happy to talk to anyone throughout the whole application like cycle. Like I remember I would like text him and be like, I haven't heard back from UCI. He'd be like, calm down, like you're fine, like don't worry. He also tore apart my personal statement, my diversity statement, my resumes. He wrote me a letter of recommendation. He still writes me letters of recommendations for like scholarships that I want. I'll like email him like last minute, but he's always like, okay, yeah, I'll get it in. So yeah, so he was definitely the one person that like really motivated me a lot and like supported me in any way. And like my first day of law school, I went to his office right after my contract class and I cried. Like I cried to him and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm gonna like drop out. And he was like, no, no, you're not. Like you're gonna be fine. Like don't worry. But yeah, but I think definitely like reaching out to anyone who just wants to support you will like get you through it.
I definitely agree. Just reach out to anyone who, any of your professors who you seem to have any similar interest with. I had a little bit less, I had I guess like less traditional experience with mentors. Like I said, I didn't understand like the value of it until much later. I actually got involved with Saturday Academy of Law I want to say at the end of my third year. So I missed out on a lot of things. But and this is where it's also a little different. My faculty, like unofficial mentors, were actually people who, they were women of color who went to law school, didn't exactly enjoy their time in law school, and then went on to get PhDs. And so this was back when I thought that, okay, maybe I'll do a JD, but I'm also still interested in academia. And so for some time I did consider a PhD. And then I didn't end up doing that. But they were still really great resources for me. I got letters of recommendation. I think their experiences in law school were vastly different from mine now in a lot of different ways. I think obviously in the past few years, law school has just gotten a little bit more diverse and a little bit more, not a lot, but just a little bit, and enough to make the difference really. in a sense. We can talk about that another time. But I really do think that, oh, and then I was an undergraduate, I was a lead TA through psychological science in the abnormal psychology course for 2 years. So I got really close to Professor Jamner, who I don't know if any of you are psychological science majors, but he's a great professor, really hard class. So he's really smart, and he's a great example of someone who genuinely wants to help. When I was his lead TA, he would set aside, like he would print out articles and he would say, I read that first gen students have a hard time asking for help. And he's showing me this article, and I remember thinking, this is the sweetest thing, you know? And I just said, yeah, I mean, like I can talk to you about it. We can talk about the article. I can tell you about my experiences too, but just having someone like that so open to helping you and understanding you, even if you don't share similar backgrounds, that's very valuable. And again, he still writes me letters of recommendation too.
I also just want to plug in Professor Phoenix. He was one of my letters of recommendation. I never talked to him once, but he is very like, yeah. So like before in class, like I took classes with him, but I'm very shy. So I don't go to like office hours because like Graciela, I always felt like, oh, like I don't have questions, like, you know, like, but I was panicking when I was applying to law school because I didn't have a professor that I got close to. So I reached out to one of my TAs who he TA'd for my stats class, but I did very good in that class, surprisingly. And I was like, hey, can you write me a letter of rec for law school? And he was like, yeah, he's like, more than happy to, but I feel like you should ask a professor. And I was like, I have nobody. And he was like, well, I'm doing research with Professor Phoenix. Have you taken any classes with him? And I was like, yes, but I've never talked to him. And he was like, I'll talk to him. And then Professor Phoenix ended up writing the letter for me. Like he got to know me, arranged a letter. He's very supportive for first gen students of color. So like, if you feel like you have no one, Professor Phoenix has your back, and you can tell him that I sent you.
Thanks, y'all. Yeah, so I'm getting right from you all the importance of fellowships, right? The importance of mentors, and even the importance of the smallest gestures, right? Like Catherine mentioned, having somebody there who's willing to understand you and sympathize with your experiences. So the next question that I have for you all, right, is taking into consideration the support that you all had from these different figures and programs, what surprised you the most about the law school application process?
I think we would all agree that the price, how much it like, I spent a lot of money. Like it is a scam. I know it's recorded, but it is a scam. Like LSAC is a scam. Like luckily, I believe, I'm sure Catherine and Graciela did the same thing, maybe reaching out to schools and try to get fee waivers, like just like emailing schools directly and being like, hey, I'm really interested in your law school. It's just, you know, financially, like I can't see myself like paying for this. To apply, and they'll waive like the $85 to $95 school fee waiver that they have, which saves a lot of money. But on top of that, LSAC, which is kind of like the system where you apply to all these schools, has a $45 fee for each school to send like your LSAT score and everything. So I think if I remember correctly, I ended up spending like $2,000 on like applying to schools because I ended up applying to like 20 schools. And that is considering that I didn't have to pay for an LSAT prep course, fortunately enough, which can be about $1,000 to $2,000. I didn't have to pay for the school fees, which would have been a lot more. So definitely the price. And I would suggest like advocating for yourself as a first gen student of color and just being, I think it was an MTO, someone was like, the people who have the money to pay for law school cash or tuition cash are the ones asking for these fee waivers. So why are you not asking for these fee waivers? So just learning that it's okay to ask, and like the worst thing that they can do is say no.
I think with that also, the LSAC does have a fee waiver, a waiver that you can apply to. I did it, I got rejected, and I appealed it. I sent so much information. I was like, I am first gen, I have no money, my parents can't help me. And I just inserted everything. I think it was like bank documents and like my parents' tax stuff. And I got it, and that covers all of your LSAC the $45 that Brenda was speaking about. And then a lot of law schools also, I think if you like reach out, if you have a list, if you already know that you're gonna go to law school, create a list of law schools that you want to go to and look at their websites. And many of them will have like a deadline of like reach out by the, I think it's like before December, November. If you reach out before then, they'll give you a fee waiver. So definitely do that. And so I think back to the question, something that I didn't realize, I think when I applied, is how long everything was going to take and how every law school takes their sweet ass time. Like really like whenever they want, they will get back to you and you're like, okay, well, like things are coming up. I still haven't heard from these schools. Maybe I'm waitlisted here. I think I'm rejected there. But then also just the financial part. Like, okay, like you're like, okay, I'm in, but how much money are you going to give me? And then you have another school was like, oh, you need to submit, if you're gonna appeal how much money we're giving you need to submit that like by this deadline, but you still haven't heard from the other school. So I think you really have to be diligent of like emailing, be like, hey, like I'm really interested in your school, however, I haven't gotten my financial package, like when should I expect it? I have a deadline. And I think everyone's like, oh, you have to like appeal your financial aid package. I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. But you only have, from some schools, you only have one shot to do it. And you have to submit another law school and how much they're giving you. And if you have like a good school, but you maybe a better one came later, it's kind of too late. And I hated that. Like that timeline of applying to law schools and hearing back was very stressful. I thought the application process of like applying was hard, but I feel like that aftermath was a lot harder for me.
I agree with them. The cost, trying to mitigate the cost and trying to figure out what you're going to do, that's very stressful. But for me, one thing that surprised me in the application process was just how difficult it can be to talk about yourself sometimes, because I think you get caught up in the idea that like I have to set myself apart from everyone else. Like I have to tell a story that's special. And it's like, wait, your story is yours. Like it's special for that reason. Just talk passionately about yourself. And that can be really hard, especially, especially when you're advocating for yourself, when you're saying, I'm going to your school, I want to go to your school because I'm great. Like, this is what I can offer you. And sometimes that's really hard to do. And, you sit in front of your computer and it's like, I'm going to do this today. And it's like, what do I say? There's little things that can prompt you, but really getting all of that out in like a cohesive piece of writing can be kind of challenging. And then like Graciela said, like every school wants you to do something else too, like a diversity statement. Oh, but this one's like a page. And then some of them are like 350 words or 500 words. I'm like, how am I supposed to tell you anything about me in 500 words? Like, but it's a little frustrating and time consuming. And I think that's something you don't prepare for until it's just all laid out in front of you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I've gone ahead and shared the website for LSAC's waiver breakdown in the chat. So you can apply, and like Graciela said, they'll have different forms that they require, but it should cover some application fees as well as some exam fees, because you do also have to pay to take the LSAT. But I wouldn't want anybody to become discouraged by that fact, right? So moving on to the next question that I have here is, how did you prepare yourself for the LSAT? And how many times did you end up taking the LSAT, if y'all wouldn't mind sharing?
I think I could go first. I have a very interesting relationship with the LSAT. I hate it. I hate that exam so much. But through Pre-Law Society, I was a board member my first year, and we got like a free LSAT course through PowerScore for all board members. So I was like, I'm not gonna take the LSAT in a while, but they were like, it's free, like might as well just take it, like just like get exposure to what the LSAT is. So I took that course through PowerScore. That was like my introduction to it. And then after that, I believe me and Graciela took a course through the UCI Continuing Education. I won that one for free in a raffle through Pre-Law Society. So join Pre-Law Society, guys. And I took that course as well. I enjoyed it. I think the instructor was good. And then through the pre-law outreach program at UCI, I got another free LSAT prep course. This time it was Blueprint, which also I think their material is very, very good as well. So I took that class, and that was before my fourth year. So summer before my fourth year, that's when I took that course. And then I never actually took an actual LSAT throughout this time either. So I never like sat down and took a full diagnostic to like know where I was at. Like I was kind of like, I'm not taking it yet. I'm just trying to like figure things out. And then fourth year came and I was like, okay, I think it's time to take the LSAT. Like I should probably take like a course, like seriously. And again, I was lucky to get a free LSAT prep course through Munger, Tolles, and Olson, which was PowerScore. And I also got the PowerScore Bibles, which if you're self-studying, I completely recommend those. Those were very, very helpful. And the private tutoring that I mentioned. So that's when I started taking it. My diagnostic was like a 143, like I'm gonna be honest. And I was like so discouraged. I was like, this is horrible. Like I'm not gonna be able to go to law school. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, like I want schools to like want me for who I am and like kind of see me holistically. And I was like, I'm not gonna let this one factor like impact me, like, or discourage me in a way. So I increased my score. I didn't do the best, like I'll share it, like I'm open, like I got a 153, but I was like, okay, like I'm never taking that exam again. Like I'm not putting myself through that. So I applied with the 153 and I was fortunate enough to get into like pretty good schools, like local schools, and ended up getting into my dream school, UCI Law. So that exam could have like prevented me from applying, but I'm glad that I didn't let it. And so I encourage everyone, like once you take that first LSAT, you get a diagnostic. If you do great, like good for you, like I'm so happy for you. But like if it's a number you don't like don't let that change your whole like perspective on like whether or not you're worthy, because that exam is not meant, like it's a racist, sexist, classist exam. So yeah, that's my views on the LSAT.
The LSAT, I'm sorry, is trash. It doesn't tell you anything. I'm gonna be very honest here. I have ADHD, and so sitting down to study, if you're gonna, so I couldn't self-study. I tried my hardest. It just, if I just was a nightmare. I was also working full-time. I was also volunteering. I was also in full-time school. And so to set aside that time and really just, it was too much. So I had to take a prep course. Here's a fun fact. If you don't end up getting a paid prep course, I wanted to do Blueprint. I had talked to a lot of people and I just liked the format of Blueprint much better. They have Cyber Monday sales. So if you find yourself on their website on Cyber Monday, you get a certain percentage off. And I was like, okay. So I paid for a course. I did most of it. Again, it's really hard to sit down and do all that, especially when you're working with any learning disability or when you're just really busy. And so like Brenda, I told myself, I'm going to take it. I'm going to give myself this many tries, and it is what it is. I knew my diagnostic wasn't great. Like Brenda, it was like in the 140s. And so I was like, all right, I think I can do better than this. I don't know how much better. This test is horrible. At that time, I thought that was the hardest my life could be. But obviously I was wrong. But it really does prepare you in the sense that like, you push yourself through it. And again, I'm not shy. I'll share my score. I applied to schools with a 154 and I got into, again, some schools that I genuinely wanted to go to. Always shoot your shot, go for your dream schools. And like Brenda said, go to places that want you because they see your value not just in a score. They value you from a holistic view, and they see your value not just as, oh, you were able to take this test and do whatever. Because yeah, a bunch of people can take a test and get a score, but that's not all you have to offer an institution. So do not let that deter you. Do not let the number, the cost. There's a bunch of different ways to get it covered or a deal. But it can feel discouraging, but don't let it.
So similarly, I took the LSAT 3 times because I just like to make myself miserable apparently. I took it one time, the first time, and I think it was after Munger and Tolles, and I got a 148. And I was very discouraged, but some of my friends were applying. I was like, maybe I should just do it. But like I previously mentioned, I was like, I just don't think I should. Waited, and it was COVID, so I took the LSAT Flex, and I ended up getting a 152, I believe, at that time. And something that I was really banking on was the logical reasoning section because my worst section was reading comprehension. As a first gen, I was like, I don't know what some of those words mean. I don't know what this is asking me, and I really struggled. And I was like, you know what? I was so banking on, on doing good on the other sections because with the LSAT Flex, every section is equally weighed now. And previously, it was two reasoning, one game, and one reading comp. So I was like, let me just try it one more time. Let me see what I can do. And like with Brenda, I think for the pre-law, UCI's pre-law outreach program gave me blueprint, and I did that. And I really liked it because it broke down by section of like, so if there was one section that I wasn't getting like on games, okay, I need more practice with these type of games, I could do that. And that's what I did. I actually extended my my subscription so I can keep practicing online. And then my boss saw how much I was struggling. So I think I owe a lot to her. She actually hired me a private tutor to help me with reading comp. And that was really helpful because I was like, I don't know, because you get so stuck on like, hey, it's like about science. I was like, I hate science. I don't know what this is telling me. And I was reading it. I wasn't understanding. And she saw me how to view it in a very different way. And it was very helpful. Um, I mean, my score got better. I ended up getting a 160, which is better than my first score. But I mean, it's not the median of what Berkeley. When you look at their stats, it's like you have to look at 170 or something. I was like, I'm not, yeah, no. After that, I was like, you know what? This is good enough. I am done making myself suffer. And I think I'm really grateful. Again, it was a very time, you will hit roadblocks in which I wasn't seeing any improvement. And that really, I wanted to give up so many times. My sister saw me break down so many times. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, should I just stop? But I think in the end, it ended up working out. And I think because of my score, I think for me again, like because of my status, I was like, I need to get a lot of money or I don't know how I'm going to afford law school. So I think that's what really pushed me in the end. And I'm grateful that I took it that third time, even though I was miserable.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I keep hearing, right, how daunting the LSAT is and what a horrible experience that is. But I keep hearing as well, right, from you all and from others that the LSAT isn't what defines you, and there are other things that you all are looking for, not only like when it comes to, I guess, like going through the application process, but also when applying to different institutions, right? I think it was Catherine who mentioned that you're not your score, and you can offer much more to an institution than just your LSAT score. So what I want to ask you all next is, what are the factors that you were taking into consideration when you were identifying your law schools of interest?
I know I said I applied to 20 schools, but that is because Munger, Tolles, and Olson really encouraged us to apply broadly. They were like, get out of your comfort zone, see what's out there. I applied to like Iowa with knowing well that I would never go to Iowa, but like they're like, they want people of color over there and like they're gonna give you money. They didn't give me any money. I feel like they knew what we were doing because Munger and Tolles always says apply to Iowa, so they probably got tired of seeing us knowing we weren't gonna go. But I applied out of state. I applied to reach schools, safety schools, dream schools, and I applied to the schools, but I feel like I always knew that UCI was like it for me. Like I went to UCI for undergrad because I wanted to stay close to like home and like be here for like my mom and my brother. I know that I want to work with my own community. So like I feel like if I ended up going somewhere else, like I would kind of not lose those ties, but not have such a direct impact. So like now at UCI Law, like they're really big on pro bono. So like I've actually been able to like help members of like my own community, continue my work with the Saturday Academy of Law. I'm doing pro bono with the Immigrant Defenders Law Center, where I help like unaccompanied minors who come from like Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras seek asylum or special immigrant juvenile status. So just being able to like directly like do hands-on was always something that I wanted to make sure I was able to continue doing. Other schools that I was maybe considering going to was like either Chapman, but I knew that Chapman wouldn't give me the same experiences that UCI is giving me. I saw Graciela laugh. Like definitely Chapman would not be the same, even though it's like I mentioned, like only like a 30-minute drive. Loyola was a little bit like far, like further, like LA. So I would have to like, I'm currently still living at home. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to like stay within my community. So yeah, so I was always like, I'm an anteater for life, apparently.
I think for me too, I applied in all California schools because like my status really puts me in a vulnerable state in other states, and I wanted to be in a place where I knew I was going to have peace of mind, and I didn't want to put myself in a place where I was going to be targeted. Law school's hard enough, and I didn't need those outside factors. So like Brenda, my dream school was Irvine. I was like, my family's there. I'm gonna go there. If I get in and they gave me money, I'm doing it. Surprisingly, Irvine didn't give me as much money as Berkeley did, and I think that was like my my switch. I was like, you know what? I think Berkeley might be it. And something that I really like about Berkeley, like what Brenda mentioned, was that pro bono work. I am now leading the Dreamers Project. SLIP is what we call it, where as like 1Ls, I assist DACA recipients in renewing their DACA applications, and that's just very personal work to me, and I'm forever grateful that I get that opportunity. I also, once I got in, I got the La Alianza, which is like the Latino group in Berkeley, reached out, and they had very honest conversations with me of what the life at Berkeley was as compared to other schools. Something that you realize, especially when the Latino community, when you're dealing with T14 schools or maybe even any school, the Latino community is very different in every school. Many times you deal with people who come from very privileged backgrounds, and that's great for them. I think that's amazing, but I think you don't have those shared experiences that you maybe would feel more comfortable with. So when they told me, like there's a very collaborative environment, like you're not, I would hear horror stories of like in other schools, people being really mean, now like don't not wanting to share outlines and not wanting to do that. And they're like, it's not like that at all. And I'm here and I can speak to that. And it's very truthful. It's very collaborative. Everyone wants to help each other out, study groups, everything. And I think overall, I wanted a place where I felt like I could really thrive and make an impact. I am a lot farther. I'm originally from Santana as well. I'm a little farther from home, but I think overall, like like this summer, I'll be back in Newport. I'll be working in Newport, so I'm going back home. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm always like an hour flight away from my family if I really want to go, but it's expensive, so I don't go as often as I would like.
Yeah, so also I wanted to stay close to home. But there were other factors. I applied to a number of California schools. Other schools, even if I knew I wasn't necessarily going to go there. I'm from the East LA area. So my options were places like USC, UCLA, and then Loyola, and obviously other great schools. But I got into Hastings, and Hastings was one of my top schools because I had ended up talking to a lot of students. I applied through the Legal Education Opportunity Program, LEOP, and I had talked to students who were in LEOP, and Hastings was the first school to get back to me, and they gave me a good amount of money and accepted me through LEOP. And so money not contingent on your grades through a program that's meant to help you with the community, that's meant to be there for you. It was like, whoa, okay, so this is a sweet deal. And but because I did get into more local schools, it was between less money but close to home, close to my family. I mentioned my grandparents raised me, so I would be close to my grandparents. My mom remarried and had a baby less than 2 years ago, so there were a lot of things that made me want to stay home. But what felt right was going to a place that it was a new experience, but it felt right. And so I was glad that I applied to a number of different schools. Definitely diversify your options, but ultimately what feels right is going to feel right, and you should trust your gut.
Thank you. I just shared the link to UC Hastings LEOP program in the chat in case anybody's interested in looking more into that.
Really
So,
quick, if
yeah, go ahead.
if anyone wants to reach out to me about LEOP, you can reach out to me about the application process, about speaking to any current students or admin. I also get involved. I'm the upcoming internal vice president for our Latinx Law Student Association. So we are like a family there, family through LEOP. So, I mean, if you're interested, I'm more than happy to connect and talk with anyone.
Thank you, Catherine. And Graciela just shared a link as well. It seems, Graciela, do you want to talk about a little bit about what you just
Yeah.
shared?
So with that, Berkeley also has the BLOS Scholarship, which is the Berkeley Law Opportunity Scholarship. And this scholarship is designated for people of color, Latinos, like first generation, DACA, Dreamers, and they cover your full tuition. So highly recommend. It's just an additional scholarship. You get interviewed. And if you are in the running, please reach out. I am not a recipient, but I have a lot of friends who are, and they're more than happy to speak with you about the application process, about what they wrote, happy to share what they wrote on their application, and it's a great opportunity to apply. I think UCLA also has another application as well. I forget what it's called, but highly recommend to just look up whatever law schools and see what options they have, because these type of scholarships are very common now.
Thank you for that, y'all. So I want to go back to an issue that Catherine brought up just now, and something that Graciela mentioned earlier, right, was the issue of the environment in your respective campuses. And I was hoping to have you all tell us a little bit about the culture and learning environment of UC Hastings, UC Berkeley, and UCI Law.
I can go first because we recently made some news headlines because a certain group that isn't particularly popular here decided to invite a controversial speaker who was actually put on leave from Georgetown Law he was a professor. He was put on leave because he made controversial statements about then nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. Well, he ended up coming here. The admin didn't want to hold a town hall. And so students were very upset because a lot of schools, and this is where, I love the environment at Hastings. I think without my faculty, I have a close relationship with career development. I have a close relationship with a lot of my fellow LEOP students, but administrations at big schools balance not only, okay, we want to diversify our schools, they have other political reasons for doing things. And so it's really telling when a school doesn't have some type of legal opportunity program or some type of scholarship. When you're looking at schools, look at what they offer their first gen students, look at what they offer their students of color, because that's going to be telling if they don't, especially because so many do now. And then just kind of look at what it means to be a student of color in those schools. I mean, the students will talk to you. They definitely will. Like I said, when I got in through LEOP, I spoke to current LEOP students, and they were very honest with me from the beginning about the good and the bad and the ugly. And so environment is very important, because if it weren't for my mentors, if it weren't for my friends, my classmates, like I said, even career development, you can't do this alone, or you shouldn't. And so just knowing you're in a place where if you are having a hard time, and you can go to the people around you and say, I need support, or I just need camaraderie, I don't know, anything, it really does make a difference. It makes this doable every day.
I can add on to what I said. I think Berkeley overall has been great. They've been really making themselves available to making resources for me. Like right now, I'm trying to figure out how to do advanced parole, and they're like, okay, how can we assist you during this process? And I think that's been very helpful. And also, I've just built a community within the affinity groups. There's a lot of them here, and also just in areas of interest. If you're learning into business or election law. There's a bunch of groups that you can find and really build that community around you. In law school, something that they do is they create sections, or we call them modules. I'm not sure why, and it's just like a smaller group of all of like of your fellow classmates, and you just get linked up. No one really knows how you're linked up and how you're formed into these groups. We make a lot of assumptions, but my group was amazing, and they have become my best friends, people who I hang out with all the time, and it was very supportive, very collaborative. I think in every school, no matter where you go, because the school wants to diversify different viewpoints, you will get some people that you disagree on. I have a couple of FedSoc people in my class, and that is very it makes me a little, it just discourages me because I know these people naturally believe what they believe, and if you don't know what FedSoc is, like they're very right people, very, 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 very conservative. So especially when you're talking about issues like reproduction rights and like immigration, like these issues really come up. But I think as long as you build a community where you feel supported and you can be vocal about your opinions and how you're feeling, I think that's great overall, because I think no matter what, the legal community is very elitist, unfortunately. So create your community and find your safe place here. And I think you can find that anywhere.
I was thinking of because we also have a Federalist Society, and I remember when I was applying to law school, it was very controversial. Like UCI Law Admissions had to post like an apology because they promoted like Federalist Society on their Instagram. It was during the murder of George Floyd. It was just super controversial. So there is those students on this campus, and like some of them are very outspoken about it. Others you'd never really know like who they are. So yeah, so you may think they're cool, and then they say that one thing and you're like, I'm gonna like go this way. But I definitely echo what Catherine and Graciela said, like affinity groups are so important. Like I would have not survived my first year if it wasn't for the Latinx Law Student Association. But like also what's sad is that faculty, staff, they don't really do a lot for like people of color, in my opinion, here at UCI Law. Like it's usually the affinity groups that are doing stuff, that are putting in the work, that are advocating for what we need. So it'd be great to have like more support in faculty. It's something that we hope through LALSA, through the Black Law Student Association, to like kind of communicate that with them, especially for first-gen students, because on all pamphlets, they love throwing out percentages of how many people of color they have, how many first-gen students they have, but then you come on these campuses and it's like, okay, so you wanted me here so bad, what are you doing for me, you know? So definitely like advocating for our needs and like talking to admin and being like, you're not doing enough for me is super important. And like as groups, it's easier to do that, to like go to admin as like an organ being like, hey, like we want you to host this workshop for us, and then they have to do it. But yeah, but sticking with the Latinx Law Student Association, there's not a lot of us in these spaces. It's unfortunate. But hopefully by being here, we're paving the path for more students to come here too. And like shout out to Josuel, who helped me like organize like the mentorship program with current law students and like undergrad UCI law students, because I definitely think that's one way that we can like increase the numbers.
Yes, I mean, everything they said. I think that's one thing I forgot to say, demographics. So I'm in San Francisco, and so we have a lot of grassroots, like activist people here. And so, like I said, who do you think invited a controversial speaker to put a target on their backs? It was the Federalist Society. And so when they got the outrage that they expected, then it was like, we are the victims. And it was like, no, everyone voiced to administration that they needed to provide an outlet, or else a protest would happen. And so of course it did. And like I said, we're in San Francisco. People know how to make themselves feel heard. And I appreciated that, you know, because you should get your school to support you. And of course, they had to release a statement afterwards, and they had to address, it was the National Lawyers Guild at Hastings, BOLSA, Black Law Students Association, and a few other groups, including my own, and students signed on to these initiatives to get Hastings to be more transparent, not only with the way in which they invite speakers and pay speakers to be here. You can't just say you didn't know that they were going to be here, you knew. And so demanding those things of your school because you have the support from your peers it's invaluable. And it definitely, that's how you should know where you should spend your 3 years.
Thank you all. I appreciate the honesty. And it's saddening to see that like those problematic groups are a constant throughout, not only undergrad, but post undergrad as well. So I guess I'm going to ask two more questions just because I do want to leave some time at the end for for those who are present today to raise any questions they may have. But I want to ask you all, what surprised you most about law school, whether positive or negative?
I think for me, everyone told me it was going to be hard. And I knew, I was like, okay. I was like, but how hard can it really be? I think I was like, we've been through a lot. But I think it is, the subject matter is hard, and the abundance of things that you have to do makes it harder. And I think that's something that really surprised me. It's just like, oh, you have to take all these doctrinal courses, and it's a lot of subject, and you're teaching yourself as you go. Also, by the way, you have to apply. If you like, for us, you have slips. If you want to do that, go do that. And also all these things are coming at you, and your time is just going. You're like, okay, when am I going to outline? When am I going to practice? When am I going to do this? And that overall was very overwhelming for me. And I think it really kind of helped me be more structured and more scheduled. Like, I live off my calendar now. I wasn't the type of person to schedule when I would eat, but now I'm that person because I need to get that done or I forget. I was okay, there's the only time that I have. So I think overall, just know that it is hard, but you can do it. I think you just have to make sacrifices. Like, I don't go out as much as I would like, but it's a sacrifice that I have to make now. But I also make time for things that I do really appreciate sometimes. Like, if I have to, like, if I want to go to the gym, I make time for it. So that was surprising for me. It is hard, but I think it's also just how many things you have to juggle at one time.
100%. I think there's three things that I'm just gonna like throw out there. One, law school is not structured to help you learn. It's structured to help you take a test at the end of the semester in a very particular way, the way that professor wants you to learn that law. And so it's like, am I actually learning about how to draft a contract? No, I'm learning what is a contract? Is this a contract? Yeah. How can I get out of this contract? And that's weird. Like, that's just weird. And the way in which you're expected to learn, it's not like you're trying this out. Oh, did you get feedback? Am I learning this correctly? Nope. And so there's like, if you go through your first semester of law school and you feel inadequate, it's not you, it's literally the way law school is structured, and that feels ridiculous. But there are ways around it. You just learn to make it work. It's just unfortunate that this is the way it is. Second thing, burnout is very real, so very real. I kept myself so structured in the first semester that I burnt out by October. Finals are in December. I wasn't sleeping much. I wasn't eating correctly. I was making it to the gym maybe once a week, or if I would go more, it was like I'd feel guilty that I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And so don't burn out, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so you need to understand, there's the thing I always keep in my mind is, you're juggling so many balls. Okay, some are glass balls and some are plastic. The plastic ones can drop. And if that means that you don't do your reading for tomorrow and you get called and you look stupid, who cares? No one cares. Nobody's going to remember. Nobody cares. What can't drop is, okay, I have to think about an application for something, like, let's say, a big scholarship that's due this day, or, I have to outline, because if I don't, or if you don't out, like, there's more important things and there's less important things. And in law school, everything is going to feel important. But if you put that amount of importance on every single thing, there's no way you'll finish, and you will burnt out and you feel guilty. And so it's psychological. And that's what I didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be difficult subject matter and then emotionally burdensome. And so if you can prepare for those things by just hearing people's experiences, and I mean, to the extent that you can prepare, you'll ask someone, how did you prepare for this final? And you'll get a million different responses. And ultimately you have to do what works for you. And unfortunately, that's trial and error.
Yes, I agree. Like it's crazy seeing how like we're all at different schools so far away from each other, and like everything that they say, I'm like, yes, I feel you, and like that's exactly what I'm going through. And like as first gen Latinas, like we're hustlers, like, you know, and like first gen, like we have this pressure to, like, our parents have always worked so hard, so we're like, we can work hard, like, you know, like, but it's, we see our parents burned out, and like we're doing the same thing to ourselves as well, like ultimately if we put in that much pressure. So like definitely I think like something that I learned last semester is that it's okay not to finish everything. Like Catherine said, like sometimes like doing that reading, it's not gonna affect you at all. Like, you know, like you're gonna look stupid. Nobody cares because they're just happy that they didn't get cold called. And so like, you know, like just knowing that like it's okay to like sleep, it's okay to eat, not to feel guilty to spending time with your family or with like your friends or like someone from like your community who's going to remind you why you're there, instead of doing that contracts reading that's going to remind you why you hate being there, you know. So yeah, so definitely I really like that, like glass and plastic balls, like that's why I'm going to start like viewing stuff now, because like it's not possible to do it all. Law school is like so much. You have classes, you have organizations, you want to do everything, but like you can't do everything. Like it's not physically, mentally possible. So another thing that I said earlier, just like mental health is so important, and like recognizing sometimes that you just need to take breaks and like take care of yourself is something that we need to learn to be okay with doing.
Thank you. And I think that leads in perfectly to the following question, which is, what advice would you give to your undergraduate self?
I think for me, when it comes to the application process, something that you cannot change is your GPA. So I think overall, just try your best. Try your best to get the highest GPA you can, because some schools do care. You know, yes, it's like a number game, but it's also like there's like the soft like elements of like, you know, your diversity statement, personal statement. Um, so really try to focus on your GPA and getting a high score. That way you kind of increase your chances if you have specific goals in mind when applying to law school. And just making those connections with your professors now, because you will need them for letter of recommendations.
I think I would tell myself to get a hobby, because like right now, like no, honestly, yeah, because like I have always been like not law school. School is my thing, academics, you know, like what do you do for fun? Oh, like I go to school, like that's, you know, like that's not a hobby. And like I have peers who like I see them running, they go swimming, they do cycling, and like I something of course I can pick up and do, but I think if I it's something that I would have started like before, like it'd be like more of a routine now, and I would be okay with like making time to do that, because now I'm like, do I really have time? Like UCI the ARC has like pretty cool classes, like they have like boxing and stuff. See, I'm gonna push myself to do that next year, or like tennis, but like establishing something that makes me happy that's not school, so I can hold on to that during all school.
I feel that so much, Brenda. I envy people who will just take time out of their day to play the piano or do something that they just really seem to enjoy. And I'm like, school's been my everything for as long as I can remember. And I think that that's kind of how you're raised. If you're a high achieving first gen, you know, it's like school, school, school. That's your value. That's your thing. Like, and it, I don't like to say it's a competitive thing, because I don't actually think of myself as a very competitive person. Like, play Mario Kart with me, I don't care. And so I think it's more of like you just find joy in it. But when you no longer find joy in it, it's like, I really wish I could pick up the guitar and play that. but I think for me, I would tell my undergrad self to stop doubting herself. Like I said, I got discouraged from law school at least 2 times, and I didn't like to even announce that I was interested in law school, which is why I think I didn't get involved with the resources that were available. Because it was kind of telling myself that I'm committing to this, but if I don't get it, what does that say about me? And I think that that's the most toxic way to think about things, especially now in law school. There were times where I was like, should I apply to that job? Like, what does that mean? Like, can I even get it? Like what would I do if I got this job? And it's like, who cares? Your peers aren't asking themselves that. Your peers aren't, they're applying to it and they're getting them. Why? Because they're just doing it. Never, throw yourself out of the ring or whatever. I don't know how to say that, but definitely always advocate for yourself. Always put yourself in spaces, and you're needed, you're valuable. And even if you have to learn what to do, who cares? Like, most people don't know what they're doing. And you learn that too. Once people are honest with you, once people like pull down, like set aside the curtain, let you see behind, like everything's a learning process. And not doing something because you don't feel you'd be good at it immediately is not a reason to not do it, because that's how you grow. But also, a lot of your peers aren't asking themselves that. So don't hurt yourself that way.
Thank you so much for imparting that wisdom upon all of us. And thank you for sharing your experiences with us all. I would now like to open up the discussion for any of those present today to ask any questions they may have that may have surfaced during this conversation. Yes, Sabrina?
I guess I'm kind of like a shy person. So I guess my question is like, how do you approach a professor about getting a letter of recommendation?
So I am also shy, like I said during my thing. So I approached my TA, and he was the one who kind of like segued me into like he asked Professor Phoenix for me pretty much. And Professor Phoenix was like, yeah, but I do want to talk to Brenda before I write her the letter. But in undergrad, like I definitely think that I should have gone to more office hours. Professors are like, even if you have nothing to talk about, like just be like, you know what, like I don't have questions, but like, can you tell me about your research, or can you tell me about like your experiences here, like why you're here at UCI? And like professors love talking about their research. They really do. Like it can go on and on and on. So just going and putting yourself out there, and like professors are there to help you. Like there's a reason they're professors. They want to help students, and a lot of them are willing to be your mentors as well.
Thank you.
Genesis?
Yes, my question is, so I'm a current grad student at UCI. I'm very interested in law school, right? And my GPA was fine enough to get into grad school, but just full disclosure, my GPA is like a 3.2, right? So if I want to get like scholarships for law school, what score should I be shooting for? Or how do financial aid packages typically look like for law school? Yeah, that's my question.
I think it really depends. It depends on the school. And I think also, that's not a bad GPA. I think, try to, just try to do well in this. I try the best that you can where you're not going to kill yourself. I think just try to make the best effort. And also, you're a grad student. You're very rare, like as compared to your normal law school applicant, and that can be a big asset to you. And also, if you have a strong personal statement, a strong diversity statement, and some schools you can do an addendum of like maybe why your SAT score is not as high. Maybe you took a class and during that time something personal was happening to you, or maybe you're first gen and you were still trying to navigate undergrad. So I think definitely don't take yourself out of the race, and use your strong skills and make sure that you emphasize them to realize what a strong candidate you are. And I think from what I've seen, they focus a lot more maybe on what you're doing in your grad program than what you were doing in your undergrad program.
Thank you.
Also, just on a random note, I will put my contact information. I am happy to be a resource to anyone. Happy to look over any personal statements, diversity statements, and give you my feedback. Um, I think, like Brenda said, the only way that we're going to increase how many Latinos are in law school is by helping one another. So please feel free to reach out. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, don't be shy. I am here to help in any way that I possibly can.
Yeah,
Likewise.
same here. Like if I get an email from anyone of you guys, like that goes at the top of my priority list.
Yeah, anything to keep myself from reviewing property law.
Yeah, Hennessy?
Sorry, sorry, I keep asking questions. I had another question really quick. So like for me, right, I'm at UCI right now, and so my top choice, right, is obviously UCI to do like the dual program. But should I actually apply early decision, or is it a better strategy to apply regular decision to, you know, to get the most financial aid?
I think that you should reach out to someone in admissions, as I think they're better qualified to answer that question. I can send you like the information. Estuardo Ponciano would be more than happy to help you. Also, Vanessa Martinez is very helpful. She's the admissions counselor. But also, I didn't apply early decision to UCI because I told myself like, oh, like I should maybe like keep my options open. But like I ultimately knew that UCI was my thing. So I do kind of in a way regret not doing early decision just because the financial aid would have been a lot more than what I get now. But just there's a lot of things to consider, you know, like for example, like Graciela said she was set on UCI, but then Berkeley came with like the money. So she was like, oh, like I'm going to Berkeley, you know, but like your thoughts can change, like where you're gonna go. So really like talk to yourself, talk to like any important like co-decision makers that you may have, if any, and just like before you commit to early decision, because I know it's like binding, like really consider like is UCI it. But I'll send you the information for Estuardo and Vanessa that you can reach out to.
And I think to add on to that, if you don't feel comfortable doing early decision just because it is binding, just make sure you apply early. Like that was the main advice the MTL fellows gave us. It's like by no like latest November 1st, your application should be in if it's doable for you. But that's what since I took a year off, I was like, okay, all my applications were in by October 31st. I had my first acceptance December, which is very rare because a lot of people weren't hearing back till February, March. So by then I already had a good list. And also, unfortunately, like I mentioned, the way the law school works is that rankings matter to them. So as you move more forward towards the application process, something that they'll do is like they want the higher GPA, the higher LSAT score, because they want their median to be high. So towards the beginning of the application process, they'll take those lower, like the 150s, the 160s, because like, you know, we still have time to even that out and get that higher. So I think my biggest advice overall is just apply as soon as possible and just submit all of your applications. But also quality over quantity. I think also make sure, yeah, you feel 100% when you hit that submit button.
Yeah, I would say especially because you're a grad student, you're occupied. So it is quality over, you know, the time. But that is also how you're going to get more money, just getting in earlier so that at that time the pot still has a lot of the funds, you know, once you get in later. But you still have time, and definitely just consider all of those things. It's a lot to consider. Don't let it discourage you. But those are just little things to think about.
Thank you all so much.
And I think we have time for one more question. Okay, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. So just as a reminder, Graciela, Brenda, and Catherine have been generous with their time and share their contact information for you all to reach out and ask any questions you may have. And something that I've learned from mentors is that when somebody offers you their contact info, you should reach out, build that community with folks, right? If Graciela, Brenda, and Catherine were here, it was because they genuinely, again, want to build those bridges for Latina folks to get to law school. So thank you all for being here as our panelists today. I'm very appreciative of you sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and your wisdom with us. And thank you to all of you who were able to attend, or all of those of you who are watching from home as a recording. So yeah, thanks y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together, Josue. It's cool, all the panels that y'all did this week.
Bye, everyone.